So guys, I'm in the river valley, decided to go for a little bike ride finally after many days that I didn't get the chance, or I just kind of let it slip by because I was too tired or whatever. And as you can see, it's not the best day for it. Mind you, it's comfortable and everything, but the air quality, not that good. But I can always take it easy, just go for a slow and small ride, just kind of enjoy without exerting myself too much, and I think that'll be fine. So once again in this video, my subject that I want to talk about is the borders. Can you see my face? Like the sun is right up there. I have a dream where people don't have to worry about crossing borders. And it's not just the elites that can cross borders, whether they are criminals or not, or, whether they have served their time, whatever. You know what I'm talking about? Like, say you're a convicted criminal, but you've served your time, but then other countries don't want you, even though maybe you've turned your life around. Like, should you be allowed to travel? You tell me. Anyways. My last video about borders was a scripted one. This one is just shooting from the top of my head, which I believe I'm probably going to stick for with this channel most of the time because it just seems to work better. Yeah, it's more authentically me, and sometimes I say something that maybe in hindsight doesn't make a lot of sense, so then it's out there. I'm not perfect, nor is anybody else, and nor are your comments. And there are some comments that I need to talk about. Now, this last video, not a lot of people have seen it, so if you haven't, I still invite you to. The YouTube algorithm didn't like that one. It was scripted, it was recorded mostly in the studio. There were 2 comments that really went deep, and I thank you for those. First of all, I need to talk to a guy about a comment that I had from a guy who said he was from Europe, where I basically praised the borders because Europe has open borders. And you can pretty much cross from one country into another without getting searched, without even having to show your passport most of the time, as far as I know. The way I remember it from when I was a kid, you could just, you slow down at the border booth, the guy just waves to you, and I guess if he could see you coming and you have something suspicious going on or whatever, he could still stop you, but basically, you don't worry about the border, Family in the car, you just go. Car after car, like I described it in the other video. So this comment was about how immigration is the biggest problem that Europe has right now. For me, that is hard to swallow because I think there is a kind of misunderstanding about what immigration actually means and what immigration can do and what immigration should not be. See, I believe that comment is based on people who perhaps don't really want to be in Europe, but had to leave their situation in a country where they just got in trouble. Like whether they were in a minority that was condemned or persecuted, or perhaps they had lost everything, or like a war zone, where you just can't feel safe anymore. And in that case, I think the immigration is warranted just because out of humanitarian reasons, and I totally understand that this has huge potential to cause some problems, but at the same time, what are you going to do? This is a problem we have around the world, and if we have open borders, then it kind of like, let's say everybody would have the opportunity to leave their country without having to go on a boat or without having to risk their lives and they would all leave that country where the dictator is, let's say they're blowing up their own people or whatever, or using chemical weapons. Like what comes to mind is Syria. So there was this guy in charge, and he did some terrible things, but it's only those people that actually had the means to pay for somebody to take them to Europe on a boat or whatever, or, go across the European borders illegally, whatever. I imagine it'd be very, very hard for people to do that. Now, imagine if everybody could just do that as soon as there's somebody trying to grab too much power. Then eventually their strategy just wouldn't fly. They would have to step down, or they would have to moderate their approach or whatever. And, like I said in the other video, we have to build better systems that are more humanitarian, and then people wouldn't have to flee their country out of desperation. But if they wanted to immigrate somewhere, then they would have that option. They would have the option even to go and try living somewhere, say for a few years, and then if things don't work out, they could just move back to where they came from. And I believe in a lot of cases that would be exactly what happens. But so what we have today, this guy says immigration is the biggest problem they have in Europe right now. And I believe it's not because of immigrants who are actually prepared to live in Europe, but it's because of those immigrants that are coming to Europe out of desperation, and there have been huge numbers, and I understand that. And at the same time, I'm sitting here in Canada, living a happy life, but you know what? I am an immigrant. I mean, I'm a Canadian citizen, have been for the past 30 some odd years. 34 years, I believe. So I feel right at home here. I feel very privileged here because there really, aside from some affordability issues, and we have those wildfires going, of course, but on a day-to-day basis, week to week, month to month, year to year, life's been good here. So I have to be really, really grateful to this country for accepting me as an immigrant. And I built a life here, contributed to society and everything. And I could assure you that the way I live right now, aside from a few things that I choose to do different, but those have nothing to do with contributing to this society or whatever. I mean, I'm a typical Canadian because there are probably more Canadians now that are that were born in other countries than there are Canadians that were born here. Now, you could correct me on that, but it pretty much represents what this country is like. A lot of people move here from other countries, build their lives around Canada, and it's made Canada a lot stronger. But in recent years, they've been saying, well, maybe we have too many immigrants coming in too fast, and it's causing problems. We don't have enough housing. We don't have enough, our services haven't been able to expand appropriately and all this. But basically, yeah, if you make this comment, immigration is the biggest problem. Look, you and I, if that's your perspective, we have very, very different perspectives on this. I mean, I haven't been in a place, even though Canada gets a lot of refugees and immigrants and stuff, where immigration is the biggest problem. Immigration works here in Canada for the most part. It is a driving factor. And there'll be people who argue against that, who tell you about places like Brampton, Ontario, which is a city I lived in, where maybe going back, and I lived there 15, was it? Like 2009 was when I moved to Alberta ultimately, or even 2010. So going back 15, 16 years, it was a mix. So I've heard, and I haven't really experienced it myself, that right now Brampton, Ontario looks like it's predominantly immigrants. And people have been complaining. I mean, there's a channel that reports on this on occasion, and it's called True North or something like that. I don't like them because I think their motives are more racist than anything else. But they're complaining that, yeah, now there's all these immigrants. They are living with 15 people in one house and they're making it work and stuff, while ordinary Canadians are becoming homeless in that city. Now, I think for becoming homeless, there needs to be a few more things wrong than housing being unaffordable. You know, obviously, if immigrants can find ways, then why don't people that grew up here? You should comment on this, because if you're in a situation where you totally don't see it my way, I want to hear from you. I want to hear what the problems really are. You know, is it just because you can't stand that somebody else is finding ways that to adapt that you don't want to take the steps to do yourself, or what else? Now, this was enough time spent already on this one comment, but there's another one that also rang a bell with me. So there's a guy in the United States. Thank you for your comment. You probably know who you are, and I hope you're watching. You said, well, open borders in Europe, it's just about the same thing like it is in the United States, where it's a very diverse population and the borders between the states are completely open. And you tell me about all this diversity in the US. Well, we had a little bit of a back and forth in the comment section where I kind of said, well, in the US, it's different than from Europe because basically the United States has one language, and you corrected me on that. There are more languages than one, obviously. And that the United States also has various cultures and that. Now, those cultures, and that's the key here, they don't originate within the United States unless you're talking about the native population. And I know they're not the ones you're talking about. And they could actually legitimately say that, well, because your ancestors come from Europe, your culture is immigrant culture. And now all this diverse culture and this diversity that you're telling me about in the United States, well, most of it does not originate in the United States. It's coming from all kinds of countries where people have immigrated from into the United States, and they are maintaining their culture, which is a great thing. But at the same time, I felt like when I was spending a lot of my time in the United States, yeah, there are people whose ancestors are European that dominate the population in the United States. I mean, definitely there are more people like that than probably any other group. They are not necessarily welcoming other cultures. There's a diversity there for sure. But then there's also the typical, what we tend to see as the typical Midwestern or Southern, they don't like diversity. They like uniformity. The guys that are, they've been growing up in North Carolina, being in the same area for all their lives. There are lots of them. And they don't like that diversity. They will vote for someone like Trump just because of that, because they want to see all the different cultures eliminated. And that was kind of my thing, because I mean, the border security with Trump, it has been brought into the limelight, and it's so much talked about, and there's now a demonstration going on about it, the ICE raids and whatnot. And American society, in part, depends on these people because, like I said in my other video, they often fill jobs that are hard to fill. They often settle for wages that other Americans wouldn't. So that's the thing, Is it enough to have open borders only within the United States? Or would the world or even the United States be better off if this border security thing was just dropped and the resources would be used in better ways? Like, they're worried about the drug problem. Well, why not help people who fall into these addictions? Spend the resources there instead of stopping the drugs at the border. I mean, you could easily produce drugs within the United States, which I'm sure is happening more than anyone dares to talk about. Crime. The first thing to address about crime is inequality. So make sure that there's perhaps a ceiling regulating how much a CEO can earn versus what kind of percentage a regular worker, even at the starting salary or starting wage, would have to make. So make sure there isn't a huge gap, because then automatically you will reduce the inequality and thereby, I believe, the crime, because a lot of the crime is caused by desperation, and inequality can cause that. And again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's just my analogy about it. Yeah, my last video, not a lot of people watched it, which I thought was a shame, because I kind of thought I did a good job. Criticize me. Do you want to see more videos where I am out in the country, out in the open, just talking without a script, without even an outline today? But see, in recent weeks, I couldn't do that. I was too busy with other things. And then the days that I actually had the time, the problem was the wind. If you sit out here and it's a 30-kilometer-hour wind going constant, this thing, tap, 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 isn't recording all that well. So then I thought, well, why don't I just take the easy way and record it in the studio? It's a good way to make videos. You can, with the script, you can actually make sure that everything you want to touch upon is actually in there. And that's why I did it. But, so this channel, I will probably focus mostly on doing outdoorsy stuff. Talking about the border is something that's close to my heart, but that's not really what I'm about. I'm not a political guy, guys. I just, like you, get affected by whatever is going on in the world, get worried about it. And my passion is in traveling. My passion is in building bridges, not walls. My bike's over there. I want to show you. And I tell you, this bike is my border crossing machine. Doesn't look like much now, does it? So, and the idea is to, of course, I'd love to do more of that kind of thing. But I'm also very happy just to travel within one country. But the thing is, I love to travel. And that's why borders, when they try to stand in your way, when you're trying to go somewhere, it could be a big problem. So once again, this is the last video of my border series, unless, of course, there's some new inspiration coming in that you share with me in the comment section. And of course, that's the reason I do this in the first place. Get a discussion going, maybe get an awareness going that maybe border security is a little bit overrated for the benefit of those that are way better off than the average person, say financially or whatever. So I'd appreciate your feedback. If you haven't seen the other videos, well, they are on this channel. Check it out. There's a playlist here. Have a good day, and I'll see you soon.